I can guarantee you that if you use the indicator that I'm going to teach you about in this video, you're going to be able to maximize your profits, take the biggest piece of the move possible, while at the same time knowing and understanding when it's time to jump ship and leave the stock. So the volume weighted average price is a benchmark indicator used by traders. I'll put the formula up right here somewhere. And essentially what it gives you is the average price of all shares traded in that specific day at that specific point. So this isn't like a moving average, because a moving average only cares about the price, but VWAP, it cares about price and volume. So in my opinion, it's a lot more valuable of a tool, because in general, trading is so based on price and volume, not just price. And we see time and time again that VWAP is a very important support and resistance line on charts. And depending on what time you're using the VWAP, it can tell you a lot about what the stock's potential is. Some main things that you need to know about VWAP is that it only works on intraday charts. So anywhere from 1 minute to 1 hour. It's not going to show up on daily charts because, like I said earlier, it's based on intraday shares and volume. It's not going to show you the VWAP on a daily chart. So if you want to have an indicator on the daily chart, then you're going to have to use something like a moving average or something else. Also, one very important thing that you must know about VWAP is that lots of institutional banks and mutual funds like to place their orders around VWAP, because typically the VWAP expresses the most liquid area, the liquid price at the current moment, so they can get in and get out of the trades with the least amount of market impact possible. For example, if the stock was way above VWAP, like 20-30% above VWAP, if they start to sell up there, everyone's gonna start to panic, because there just won't be enough support and they can drop the price a lot more drastically. Whereas if they place their orders around VWAP, then it's not going to have as big of an effect, because there's more market liquidity and more people willing to trade at that price. Retail traders like to use VWAP as kind of a confirmation of trend. I'm gonna give you guys a few examples of this, but overall what you can know is that in general, if the stock is below VWAP, that means it's bearish, it's downtrending. When the stock is above VWAP, that means that it's ultimately bullish. And I'm going to show you guys a few examples of how you can use VWAP as a way to time reversals and catch the perfect time of the trends upwards and downwards. So here's the 5-minute intraday chart of SOLY. This is starting on 5/24, May 24th, and it goes until June 3rd. So I'm going to give you guys a good example of how you can use VWAP to your advantage, and how you can kind of tell when institutions are buying into a stock. So SOLY, this one was a crazy supernova. Not sure if you guys traded it that day, but it was pretty awesome. And just a few things that I want to explain to you using a chart with VWAP is that there's a few things that you need to know. So number one, this is the VWAP line right here on Thinkorswim. If you want to add it, it's the same as adding any other indicator. You just go to studies, add study, go all studies. You can't see it on the screen, but then you hover over V and you just find VWAP on the list. So as far as the settings for VWAP go, I leave everything default, but when you do put up VWAP on Thinkorswim specifically, it's going to give you these two extra lines, one above and one below. I personally don't use these lines. I don't think that they're advantageous. So if you want to get rid of those, you just right click on Thinkorswim and you hover over upper band, you uncheck all these three bubbles and do the same thing for lower band, and then just press apply and they will go away. So some key things to note about VWAP is ways of how it functions. So like I said, and like how I showed you guys the formula for VWAP, it is based on volume and it's calculated intraday. So what this means is that the VWAP line is extremely affected by the morning. It's going to move the most in the morning, and then as the average change of volume starts to kind of diminish, it's going to start to flatten out and not be so volatile. So for example, because this is the very morning, and at the very morning there is no volume, with any volume change, the VWAP line is going to move very rapidly. It's kind of like an exponential moving average, where essentially what an EMA is it just cares more about the recent price action, so it factors that more into its calculation. Same for VWAP, because in the morning, whatever way the volume is going, that's the way that it's going to really follow really fast. Like, you see how the volume is dead, and then once it ramps up, as it uptrends, because this is the start of all the volume, it's going to move the most in this first moment. So you could use this to your advantage. Now, it doesn't mean a solid trend, but in general, if you see the VWAP line moving very rapidly in the morning, you can kind of forecast that and say, okay, well, eventually, if the stock wants to become overbought and eventually reverse, it's going to have to extend pretty far from the VWAP line. So if you can kind of just have some creativity and understand that, wow, this VWAP line has moved up really rapidly, really fast in only the first 15 minutes, you can kind of use that to forecast what the potential of this stock is. Some of the things that you need to know about VWAP is that, like I said earlier, lots of institutions like to use their orders at VWAP just because it is the most liquid at those points. And for example, whenever we have these massive supernova moves like SOLY, you're almost guaranteed to have institutions playing with it as well. That's why there's so much volume. And you can see on SOLY, like, two of the main best dips that you could have gotten into were right on top of VWAP, right there and right here, where the price, here it had a fake breakdown, but the candle closed above and all the rest held pretty nicely. That shows confirmation that it's respecting VWAP. And then right here, we had this quick snap down, and you can see these two candles here just tapped VWAP almost perfectly to like the exact price, showing that there must have been lots of big players who had their orders at VWAP to hold it up as support. And you can kind of confirm that by looking at the volume and seeing this large uptick in volume. This means that there was lots of people panicking out, but overall there were more buyers that held it up. Some of the things to know about VWAP that I can explain on this chart is that something that you need to know about price action, and keep in mind, we go way more into depth about this in TradeBuddy University, but as far as price action goes, when you have a very large spike that's based on some sort of solid catalyst, either massive volume or news, the first time it tests VWAP is going to be usually a pretty safe dip. Like, for example, it's not just going to pop up and then slam right back down through VWAP. It's going to mess with VWAP for a bit, and you can use this to your advantage to kind of track how well the stock is doing. I'll show this in another example. So here is TRNX. We actually traded this one today. In TradeBuddy, we had an awesome entry that I alerted right off of the 48-cent support. I'll put up a screenshot right here, just signifying that. And we used VWAP to our advantage on this trade because this was kind of our, one of our main morning reversal patterns that we play, and it is all centered around VWAP. So we can see that TRNX obviously had a good news release because it spiked up crazy in pre-market. And one of the things that I was watching for at market open is that I knew that because it had a massive pre-market spike, it was likely going to have a morning sell-off, and you can track that using VWAP. So one of the main things I was looking for was weakness into the open, and we signify that by either a fake breakout over VWAP. So right here, that's what we see here. Opened up pretty strong, but then once it was over VWAP, it could not hold up, and then it broke down below it. And then you can see that overall it was bouncing up and using the main VWAP line as resistance. So the mean reversal pattern that we had here was, buying into this reversal. And essentially the way that we play this is that as long as the price is underneath the VWAP, you go for two main instances. Either you wait until it breaks over VWAP and start to sell, or if it never breaks over VWAP and starts to turn back around, you go for your risk. But once it breaks over VWAP, now the stock is actually bullish, and now you can use VWAP as your risk level. And this is, kind of what I was talking about earlier. Like the first time that the stock pushes over VWAP, the first dip down to VWAP is going to be a very critical moment, because one of two things can happen. Either it's going to bounce up, make a lower high, and then crack down through VWAP, signifying backside, or it's going to pull back down, make support, and then squeeze higher. So you can use the VWAP to kind of track the progress of the stock. Like for example, if you're playing this type of morning reversal play, where you're playing the fact that it has a chance to break over VWAP, once it's over that line, you can use that as your risk. For example, I traded this today, and once we broke over VWAP, I knew that it's going to have at least one dip down to that line first, and then choose which direction to go from there. So I bought into the support around 50 cents, took profits as it went above 60 cents. I added back into the first bounce of VWAP. And then once I saw it make a lower high and then crack the VWAP line, that's when I stopped out. And eventually you can see that it was overall a decent time to stop out, because once it cracked that VWAP support, it lost all support and then it started to fade. Here is the same exact example of the kind of using VWAP to track the trend, but this time, instead of breaking down after the first bounce, it actually held up and then squeezed. So just like on TRNX, on BPTH, I was buying it into the support in the 1380s, low $14. And I knew that once it squeezes over VWAP, the main thing it has to do is hold VWAP as support. And as long as it does that, it's going to continue uptrending. So we can see we squeezed over VWAP, it pulled back, but then held as support, jumped up, pulled back, held as support, had an even bigger jump up, pulled back, held as support, and at this point I was adding since it was the first main pullback to VWAP, jumped up, held higher lows, and then squeezed out, and I sold into the resistance here in the 1730s and 40s. So you can tell that using VWAP, if you use it correctly and understand how to read price action, you can use it to your advantage, because I can only assume that there's so many traders who are playing this reversal. They were probably buying into the support just like me in the $14 area, but then they would take profits very timidly. Yeah, they're locking in profits. That's great, but you're also losing money on opportunity costs if the stock can go higher. So yeah, while it's nice to lock in that 5-10% profit, at the same time, you want to let your winners run and try to capture the biggest part of the move possible. And this is really only doable with VWAP. It's not really possible with moving averages, because it's not based on volume and it can be very random at times. When you base it on an indicator like price and volume, which is what VWAP is calculated from, then you kind of tap into traders' emotions. And this may sound complex, but I talk about it more in my course. You tap into the traders' emotions, and you're using only the indicators that they're going to react to, which is like their entry price, right? So try this out, use VWAP to your advantage, and just put it on your chart, because it really does have a big effect on these stocks. If you guys enjoyed this video, please do me a favor, drop a like down below. Lets me and YouTube know that the content's valuable. If you have any questions about VWAP or any other indicators, or just want to say that you enjoyed the video, drop it down in the comments below. Last but not least, hit the subscribe button, helps support me and lets you know when future videos come out. Last but not least, I do have a completely free trading course. Yes, I mean it. completely free, no strings attached. If you want to learn more about trading, learn more about the psychology and the things that people just don't talk about, you know, not basic breakouts and breakdowns, but the real deal of trading, click the first link down below. You'll get registered for my free trading course, and hopefully you guys enjoy it. If you do, let me know, and I'll see you guys in the next video.